Welcome back. The Assistant Secretary General for Peacekeeping Operations has asked G5 Sahel member states to relentlessly pursue the efforts made to date to deploy the remaining troops as quickly as possible so that the joint force can resume its operations. Briefing the Security Council on the Secretary General's report about the joint force of the Group of Five for the Sahel, the United Nations Assistant Secretary General Bintu Keita reiterated that the operationalization of the joint force has incurred delays and is yet to attain full operational capability.
I call on G5 Sahel member states to relentlessly pursue the efforts made to date to deploy the remaining troops as quickly as possible so that the joint force can resume its operations. I urge G5 member states to take advantage of the efforts carried out by the joint force, MINUSMA, and OHCHR to establish a human rights and international humanitarian law compliance framework and cooperate for its rapid and effective implementation, including by supporting effective accountability mechanisms, ensuring the systematic deployment and presence of provost officers at the company level, and supporting the deployment of United Nations teams in G5 countries.
The African Union remains deeply concerned over the continuing deterioration of the security situation in Mali and the Greater Sahel region as a result of the increasing threat posed by terrorism and violent extremism and its spread in surrounding countries. The complexity and the multidimensional nature of the challenges facing the Sahel region attest to the necessity for our collective response to fully take into account the strong nexus between security and development. We therefore need to calibrate our respective interventions to better respond to the national and regional needs to address the root causes of instability and put an end to violence.
Russian President Vladimir Putin says he wants to increase cooperation with the mineral-rich Central African Republic during a meeting with the country's leader, Faustin Archange Touadera, in St. Petersburg. Mr. Touadera thanked President Putin for Moscow's help during a difficult humanitarian situation and reiterated that though the CAR is among the least developed nations, the country has huge potential. Both leaders also praised each country's links during the Soviet era. The CAR has been subjected to a UN arms embargo, but Russia has managed to win an exemption to sell weapons to the government. The country is one of the poorest in Africa, and most of it is in the hands of militia groups. Algeria has announced that it will expel 105 Malians for being members of the Ansar Eddin military group, the first such action in the North African country against the group. This comes as the United Nations on Tuesday urged Algeria to stop rounding up and expelling sub-Saharan migrants. But Algeria has rejected this criticism, saying it's facing a massive influx of illegal migrants on its southern borders with Mali and Niger. Militants linked to Malian jihadist Iyad Ghali have claimed responsibility for dozens of attacks on Malian, United Nations and French troops operating in Mali's desert region. Al-Qaeda in Islamic Maghreb and a branch of Islamic State are the two main militant groups in Algeria. South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa has announced that he will donate half of his $290,000 salary to charity in honor of the country's first black leader, Nelson Mandela. Mr. Ramaphosa, who took over from Jacob Zuma in December and is facing a national election in 2019, announced the move in Parliament on Wednesday. The donations, he says, will form part of a new fund called Thuma Mina, that's Send Me, and will be managed by the Nelson Mandela Foundation. The billionaire says he also hopes others will follow in his footsteps. The fund will be launched on what would have been President Mandela's 100th birthday later on this year. Finally on the program, an Egyptian theatre group is holding street performances with the aim of interacting with everyday people so as to spread awareness of the art across the country. The plays are specific to matters related to the holy month of Ramadan, which began on Thursday in Egypt. A multicultural cast walks through the streets of Old Cairo, banging on percussion instruments and calling for residents of a poor neighborhood to come and watch. The cast are part of a theater group, Nada Art School, performing plays in streets and public squares in areas where people do not generally have access to theater.
The goal is a developmental one and a social one too. We're making this kind of art available, which is otherwise performed on stages with expensive ticket prices, which citizens who live in poor neighborhoods cannot afford. Our goal is to also offer a new way of thinking and new art by using very simple tools.
The actors often show up unannounced, and the first part of every performance includes a procession with singing and dancing to grab people's attention. Members of NAS danced and sang Ramadan-themed songs before performing 3 short plays for children and adults alike.
When we first started this school, we were aiming to help a new generation of youth in reaching approximately 80% of the Egyptian population, who are otherwise unable to interact with art because they do not have access to commercial or governmental theaters. That is when we decided to form a moving troupe.
Many children interact with the performers during the play and clap excitedly as the scenes reach their climax. NAS aims to reach as many Egyptian population as possible by creating a theater group that is mobile and can perform anywhere, according to the head of the school, Mustafa Wafi. The troupe also aims to raise awareness of arts and form a culture of dialogue with the underprivileged, which NAS teacher Tina Ingelstam says is challenging. A good way to influence people positively. That's it on Network Africa. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Joker Rogers.